Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I am Dillon Gonzalez. I am the editorial director for geekvibesnation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. If you're new here, well, first of all, welcome. What we do is we go back and forth. We talk about the latest and sometimes greatest, sometimes not, home video releases. And I know I say this a lot, but holy crap, do we have some really good stuff to talk about. But I'm going to kick it off to you first.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I have a lot of titles I'm super excited to talk about. So I'm just going to have to jump right in with one of the all-stars for this episode. This is one of the newest from the Criterion Collection. This is the 4K Ultra HD release of Thelma and Louise, the Ridley Scott classic. Gina Davis, Susan Sarandon, as women on the run from the law, because men are shitbags. But I'll go into that in a little bit. Here's this kind of has like a fold, like this opens up into, there's a 4K disc over here, and then a Blu-ray for the feature, and then a Blu-ray for the special features, just all on its own. There's nothing really behind the disc artwork wise. I'm pretty, yeah, it's just solid color, so I won't deal with that too much. But so this kind of has a booklet here that's pretty great. It has some images and essays, very thick and nice pictures and all that kind of stuff. Everything you expect from a Criterion Collection release. Um, and I was very excited to revisit this one. I've only seen it a couple times in full, and the last time was on streaming, like from my local cable company. So it wasn't the best quality. So whenever I'd never owned this, so I was whenever I saw this was coming out, I was like, ooh, definitely gonna like finally own this and like a hopefully really great presentation. And it is really great. But just revisiting the film as it's before I get into this technical stuff, revisiting the film, I actually liked it a lot more than the last time I watched it. I guess kind of I was more kind of prepared for what the film actually delivers and everything, and just kind of like the actual the way that all the men do behave just pretty poorly throughout. Besides like Harvey Keitel's character, who's kind of he plays a cop character who believes that they are probably on the run for like a a good reason and is trying to help them out, whereas everyone else is just being awful. But like the titular Thelma and Louise, they're just like women who are, I'm not going to go too far into it because it's a classic movie, but it's just like two women who are just trying to have a weekend out, kind of like a girls' weekend, who at one of the bars, I believe it's Louise, a man tries to rape her. And in the course of that, Thelma shoots him and they kind of go on the run from there. So these women on the run from the law. And I was kind of frustrated the first time I watched this by like a lot of their actions. And I was just like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? But just kind of reflecting on it like over the last few years and just kind of like thinking about it a little bit more, it just kind of made me realize that it wasn't so much about what these women were doing specifically and like how I would like think that like, oh, this isn't rational, or this is not rational. This is kind of almost like a fantasy of just like these women are kind of fed up, and like you can kind of see where their lives are before they go on the road trip, and there's a lot that's unspoken that you kind of pick up throughout. But it's just these women are just kind of fed up and finally letting themselves free, and just like finally getting like a little bit of power in their like the dynamic of like the society just pushing them down and everything, and all leading up to like an iconic ending which everyone probably knows, but I still won't spoil it. But it's just it's tragic, but is also like I understand where this film was written from, and I appreciate more kind of like the fuck you to society that this is, more so than just me being like, why would you do this? Why would you like rob this gas station? Why would you do that? It's just like it's not really about that. It's like a bit like I got it more on like a deeper thematic level this time through, which I'm glad I like took the chance to watch this. Not that I didn't like it the first time. I was just like a little bit more irritated about certain character choices that did not bother me as much this time. But this release is really great. Like I said, I've never owned this before, but this comes from a new 4K restoration. But the Blu-ray is also restored. But the 4K comes in Dolby Vision, I think it looks really great. I think there is probably a slight push towards like a cooler look to the color palette, which some people might view as kind of revisionist. I don't really know for sure what is the correct intention. It's not like overly dark, but it is like a cooler push a little bit. But I think it looks really great and it kind of suits some of the like aesthetics of the movie. Mostly it's like whenever like the interiors, whenever like the police are talking to like certain people who are they're trying to get information from, it kind of takes on like a more icy look. But it's not overwhelming, but I just do want to mention that because I know color timing is a big issue in the time of digital restoration. So I wanted to bring it up. So this comes with a DTS 5.1 track. There's no stereo 2.0 track, but the 5.1 track sounds very good. There are two commentary tracks on both discs. There is one from Ridley Scott, and there's one from Susan Sarandon, Gina Davis, and screenwriter Callie Corey. And those are both archival tracks. They are from back in the day. The second disc of just purely special features are just all the special features that were previously released. There's like an hour-long making of documentary that's like divided into three parts. There's some like behind the scenes stuff and like interviews and all kinds of so brief promotional stuff. So all the legacy special features are here. On the standalone Blu-ray disc for the movie, that's where the new special features are. There's not a ton, but there's like some good stuff in here. There's a new interview from last year with Ridley Scott, who's kind of talking about his time with Thelma Louise and kind of his early career with commercials and kind of his like earlier films and everything. And to complement that, you also get a his first short film ever, which was I believe shot in the late '60s, I believe, and so you get that. It's about 27 minutes long, I believe, and it's black and white. It stars his brother, also director, the late Tony Scott, in that role, and that's pretty interesting. And then you also have like a 30-second Guinness commercial that he directed back in the day because he started out in advertising, and so that's like kind of like a fun anyone who knows Ridley Scott knows he has a really like an eye for design and stuff. Like just looking at especially movies like Alien and everything, like he just like Blade Runner, you just have kind of all these like distinct production design elements, even though he has great production designers with him, but he has like an eye for like what this is. So just seeing his like start in commercial is really fun too. Also, another new special feature is a new 20-minute interview with screenwriter Callie Corey, kind of reflecting back on her time writing this and kind of what she wanted to get out of it. And there's a lot of good anecdotes throughout that. So not too much in the way of special features, but like what is there is pretty great. And then you also have all the legacy special features on a separate disc, so you're not like compressing this 2+ hour movie to hell. Overall, I think this is a really great package. I really had a lot of fun revisiting it. It's like an American classic, and I think it just keeps getting better every time. Like the fact that it still remains so painfully relevant is awful, but like it holds up so well. So, Thelma Louise from Criterion Collection, I really really loved it.
Nice. Yeah, this is one that I honestly have not seen in maybe a good 10 plus years, so that should be a really interesting one to revisit. I do remember liking it. Is this the one that like Brad Pitt is in it for like a second?
Yeah, he's in there for probably like 10 or so minutes or so. Yeah. It's memorable.
Who's the cowboy?
Oh, this is JD. He's gone. A student. We're just giving him a ride to here, and then Louis said that he would have to go, so
he's gone.
I guess that's what he's doing.
Yeah, I reckon that's what I'm doing.
He's gone.
Could win. Have a good trip.
Cool. Thank you.
Nice to meet
you. Yep, that's him going. I love to watch him go.
Thelma kind of took to him.
Yeah, well, I got you a room there, Thelma. You can go on in and take yourself a nice cold shower.
Well, you know me, Jimmy. I'm just a wild woman.
Okay, that's good. So I'm not completely losing my memory. I feel like I remembered that was like a really early role for him too, right? Like,
yeah, it's like one of his like they call it like a star making role because he's like chiseled and he's like kind of like a sexy vagabond. It's like, yeah. Okay. So there you go.
Speaking of like, well, I mean, that's obviously not a sexy film, but because it deals with heavy stuff. But
Yeah.
we're gonna transition into something that's a little more light. Well, not lighter, but a little more sexy, a little more like escapism, and that is Miami Vice. Um, so this is the Walmart exclusive steelbook that I'm showing off right now. Here's the back. And the side there. So here's the inside, and I'm gonna pop this out and show you the interior here. There you go. And yeah, so I had never seen this one, so I was kind of excited to check this out, and I really enjoyed it. Have you seen this one?
I last saw it in the theater, so it's been a while. So I remember really
Wow.
liking it, though, more than most people that I can remember.
Yeah, so that's interesting because this film has garnered quite the cult following. I know I try to do a little homework for y'all to give you some good context, and apparently Edgar Wright is a big fan of this film, and some other like notable filmmakers have sort of touted this movie as being like an inspiration or a favorite. So this is directed by Michael Mann, and this is of course a remake of the campy TV series. But I will say this movie lets it be known right away that they're taking this very seriously. This is like their take on Miami Vice. Although Miami Heat, also a good title because Michael Mann and Heat, and
Yes.
it's a little inside joke also. But yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I really enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun with it, way more than I thought I was going to. The action is nearly nonstop. Jamie Foxx and Colin Farrell really just make absolute meals out of their roles, and they don't ever go, like, I would say, too over the top with it, but they are kind of having fun with the material, even though again the movie isn't there is some funny moments, but it's very grounded. It's a much more realistic sort of approach to the to counter the series. Visually, this movie is very striking. Michael Mann is kind of known for his flair and mood when it comes to his films, and yeah, this is no exception. It's really nicely shot. So this is Mill Creek. So you might be wondering, what does this look like? Is it worth picking up? So I was trying to dig around to see. I don't believe this is a new transfer. I believe this is maybe just an imprint from the 2008 initial release on Blu-ray, and it's fine. You can tell that they're using like an older maybe master. Clarity is really not where you would want it to be, especially with like watching this on like a high definition TV, 4K TV. There's like moments where like there was one scene at night where it looked almost like it was snowing because it had that kind of like debris and stuff. So really not kind of how you would want this to look, but it was overall fine. It wasn't like poor. Again, I would like to see somebody do this in 4K. That would be really awesome. This is serviceable. I believe this whatever was on the Blu-ray has been ported over. So yeah, it's fine. It's a pretty bog standard release. If you already own the Blu-ray, I don't think it's super worth picking up, if I'm being honest. But if you haven't seen it or you don't own it, I think this is a nice release. I like steelbooks. Your mileage may vary out there, but yeah, it's fine. It's the movie definitely was a treat. It was just way more fun than I kind of was anticipating. So
Yeah, you're kind of making me want to rewatch it soon. I do have the original Blu-ray. I probably picked it up when it first came out, which shows you how like I like to pick stuff up, and this when the mood strikes me, I'll watch it. And so apparently the mood hasn't struck me, but I I'm dying for someone to put this out on 4K because Michael Mann has such a distinct aesthetic, and it doesn't seem to go well with Mill Creek because his films are so like kind of grainy and grimy, like even digitally shot. That he's like kind of like inserted grain. Like anyone who's seen the Collateral 4K knows that even then, it's still just like a quite like a murky kind of like digitally grainy film. And I know he was, from what I remember, he was using that process with Miami Vice. So like their encode cannot handle this grain structure, in my opinion. So I'll stick with my old Blu-ray until a 4K release comes out. But I'm glad that there is steelbook packaging for those who want it. But unlike the thing Blu-ray steelbook that you discussed a few weeks ago, I'm not going to spring for this one. So, but good. People need to watch the movie. It's fun. I think people are too hard on it. So moving on to my next title, I think it'll be one that's of particular interest to our audience because I know we have a lot of horror fans. This is a new Scream Factory 4K release of The People Under the Stairs.
Oh, I love this movie.
Which, of course, like I think it was either last year or the year before, I finally broke down and I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy this. And I bought the old Scream Factory Blu-ray, and now they bring it out on 4K, and I was like, makes sense. Okay. Right after I buy that, and of course I didn't get around to watching it, so that's what it is. There's no reversible cover art, which is interesting, because I did bring out that old Blu-ray that I got. This is the cover art on the old one, and you would think that they would like maybe transfer that over, but they did not. It's just a single-sided release. So 4K disc and Blu-ray, whereas this old release was just a single Blu-ray. So yeah, getting into the film a little bit at first. This is from Wes Craven. This is, like I said, my first time watching it. I didn't really know what to expect from it, but I really liked it. I think it's a really like fun, kind of like a little bit crazy movie. It's just about a young boy who's like kind of growing up in the projects, we'll say, who he goes like his mom is in bad health. They're kind of like about to be evicted from their apartment, and he is convinced to go help along with our robbery by his sister's boyfriend. This kid, he's not very old. He's like in his like preteens, I believe. And in the course of like going to rob this house of their like basically the landlord people who own their building, that he finds a bunch of insane stuff within the house. So there's like people imprisoned and just people living in the walls and all kinds of weird Wes Craven-y stuff that if you've seen any of his work, you wouldn't really be super surprised, but it's a fun kind of bonkers time. What I really like about this character, or like about this movie, is like Wes is attempting to bring a little diversity to his work. This is like the lead character is a young black boy. And this is kind of tackling some social issues of like wealth inequality and like classism and all that kind of stuff within the context of this like kind of goofy, interesting, disturbing horror movie. And there's a lot of elements, especially with the main couple who live at the house that I won't like spoil, but there's like some revelations where you're like, oh, okay, that's even more disturbing and messed up. But this is just kind of like a house of horror kind of situation where he is trying to survive these crazy people who like eventually find out that he is in the house, and it just kind of devolves from there. Most of the film, almost probably like 90% of the film takes place within this one house. And there's a lot of interesting set pieces within this. I don't think it's like a perfect movie. I think it maybe is like a slightly over long, but for the most part, it keeps your attention throughout, and it's just like kind of just a weird, fun movie, and I had a lot of fun with it. So this new Blu-ray release comes from a 4K restoration of the original camera negative. The old Blu-ray came from a dated master, and the Blu-ray that comes with this is also from the new 4K scan. So even if you only own this on, or you're only Blu-ray capable, if you get this package, you'll still be getting a better transfer than what's on that old release. The 4K release is in Dolby Vision. It has DTS 5.1 audio and 2.0 audio, so you have an option. It comes with 3 audio commentary tracks, one an archival one with Wes Craven, one with like a few members of the cast, and there's one dedicated one that's moderated by a film historian with the main actor who plays the young boy. So there's 3 commentary tracks. I did take a chance to look at my old Blu-ray since I did own it and kind of compare, and even just comparing it to the new Blu-ray, the new Blu-ray offers a lot of improvements from me spot checking the other one, just because it's like more crisp. There's less black crush. There's just more detail, and the 4K makes it even better. I think it's a really great 4K presentation. I didn't see a lot of encode problems. A lot of this movie takes place in darkness, but this holds up very well. I didn't see a lot of like places where like the encode fails it. It's just like a very deep blacks that kind of reveals new details that I couldn't really pick up on the other like Blu-rays. So the interesting thing about the special features for this one is there are no new special features on this, but there are new to Scream Factory special features for this. So unlike most of their 4K releases, this 4K disc has special features on it besides the commentary tracks. This new 4K disc includes, from what I can tell, almost all of the special features that were previously released on the Arrow video release of this from the UK. So you get interviews with like newer interviews, newer before he passed, like with Wes Craven and the main young girl who is stuck in the house. I can just read all these off. Well, it's not listed in the back. But there's 2 actor interviews, the one with Wes Craven, and there's an interview, like a brief 10-minute interview with the creator of the Final Destination series, just kind of giving his like how it impacted him and all that kind of stuff, which is really cool. So you get all those new Arrow video special features. And then on the Blu-ray disc, you get all the original Scream Factory special features from the original collector's edition. So they beef up the special features, even though like if you have the Arrow video, it's not new to you, but it's new to this release. So it's just like they got all these new special features cleared for this release, which is awesome, I think. So overall, this is like a huge upgrade from my eyes. I think fans will be very pleased, and just like this is a good addition to any Wes Craven collection. It's a really fun horror movie if you haven't seen it. It's a 5-star release in my opinion. It's great.
Nice. Yeah, I am so excited to own this because I'm a big fan of this movie. Yeah, I agree. The pacing is maybe a little bit off at times, but yeah, I think it's definitely one of those that I think still holds up. I love how in mostly everything Wes Craven did, he kind of tackles like the family unit and like the sort of like decay of the family unit. Like that's something you can see in virtually everything he did. So that's pretty cool. I am going to be talking about another sort of infamous movie, but it's a little maybe less known, but kind of wild. And I liked, well, it's complicated. We'll get into it. It is In the Cut, which is pretty wild. Have you seen this one?
I have not. My wife just recently was she's not a huge fan of film noir, but she said that this is like probably one of her top like neo noir movies.
Okay. So that makes it more awkward then, because I think this is it's fine. It's just it's very disjointed. I think the intent of this film is really interesting. The problem is the film is kind of littered with these half-baked ideas that never really fully form. Like they'll set up some strands that never really feel like they're paid off. But I will say it's strange enough that it's just very engaging and an interesting watch. Mark Ruffalo, if y'all like Mark Ruffalo, he is naked in this. So they, I don't know. Meg Ryan is as well, though. I feel like there was like a Family Guy joke where they were kind of talking about in the cut, and maybe probably something unflattering about Meg Ryan, but I don't know. This has a really great cast. Jennifer Jason Leigh is such an amazing actor. Also, I feel like my one thing is she's very underutilized, but I love this crazy character she plays. Like she does this wacky weird shit that is hilarious and kind of self-destructive. Um but yeah, it definitely has a very kind of gritty neo noir sensibility, and I do kind of appreciate how it almost feels like a deconstruction of maybe like a Sam Spade sort of noir, only like amped up with like sex, and like the violence is a little bit more like intense, but it still has that sort of pulpy sort of like dime store, novel sort of uh, thing going on that I don't know. I feel like makes it sort of worth watching. So this is Mill Creek again. It's hard to tell because the way this is shot, it's very like low light, sort of grimy, gritty. It almost kind of has that like Euro-y sort of like putrid look at times. So it's hard for me to judge how exactly this is supposed to look. This might have also been early digital film. Having said that, I think it looks fine. There is a little bit of like lackluster clarity. There's a little bit of like grain, but maybe too much or overtly so. Again, this is another movie that I think would be nice to have a nice refreshed 4K. I don't know what the demand for a 4K of In the Cut would be, so this might be as good as it gets for now, but I mean, yeah, people kind of bag on this movie, but I think it's interesting. I think that like it's sort of a mess, but it's a really engaging and interesting one. So I appreciate that because I was never like, I mean, it's 2 hours long, and I really was never bored because there's always something kind of weird going on. Like to give you an example, I'll make this really quick, but Meg Ryan is his teacher, and she has a student, and this student has this sort of like non sequitur about John Wayne Gacy and how he was actually innocent, and like goes on this sort of like spiel about John Wayne Gacy's innocence and stuff. And there's sort of this like, again, there's a whole subplot with this student that again doesn't go anywhere, but it's still weird and fascinating. And I kind of appreciate just weird non sequiturs like that. So I don't know. Your mileage, of course, will vary, but I think it's a fun movie. Well, I mean, fun's not maybe the right word because there is some heavy stuff in it, but it's an engaging movie.
Yeah, I won't speak too much on behalf of my wife, but I will just say that this movie is from Jane Campion, the Academy Award-winning director of Power of the Dog. And like I said, my wife, she's not a huge fan of noir just because of how women are depicted sometimes.
Yeah.
But I know what she really appreciated about this is, even though there is a lot of sex, from what I remember, she was saying that this movie isn't afraid to show like female pleasure and focus on like the female point of view of like receiving pleasure and all that stuff. So I think that's kind of what spoke to her, that it wasn't more so like a male driven story. It was more kind of like from a feminine lens. So I'm interested to check it out and see kind of how I respond to it. But I know it's a very divisive movie among a lot of audiences.
Yeah.
So moving on to my next title, this kind of complements a title I think I talked about last month or the month before. This is the Saragossa Manuscript from Yellow Veil Pictures and Vinegar Syndrome. This is from the same director of The Hourglass Sanatorium, which I talked about on here. For those who may have trouble recalling that one, that's the one I kind of compared to like an early, like proto Terry Gilliam type Odyssey, and this director, I believe it's Wojak Haas. I could be saying that wrong. So here's the alternative cover art. He kind of deals a little bit more. It's not as surreal as the Hourglass Sanatorium, but it's a really kind of interesting odyssey. This is a lot longer than Hourglass Sanatorium. This is right at 3 hours long, or no, just over 3 hours long. So it was definitely an odyssey to get through. But I found it very interesting, and an odyssey it is, because this is set during kind of the times of the Napoleonic War, and it's kind of hard to classify exactly what this film does throughout its time. But it's basically, it follows like this one soldier who's kind of like on a journey, and he comes across the titular manuscript where he was like kind of reading stories, and he's like on a journey where he's like coming across different people who are telling him their own stories. So it's kind of almost vignette-y, where it's different small, like probably like 30 to 40 minute stories that kind of begin to layer on top of one another. And like some of it is just him hearing about exploits of his family history. You hear about his dad, who was just like this ridiculous man who was just always traveling around and challenging people for duels, just like at the drop of a hat, like any small slight, he was just like, I challenge you to a duel. But the thing is, he was very bad at duels, so he was always just getting stabbed and being like, okay, you're right, my bad, I shouldn't have done that. So but it's like really a man of honor type of thing. And so you just get to hear about kind of all these like people's stories and just interesting kind of exploits that kind of build on one another, and eventually near the end you kind of start to find it pulling it all together in like some sense. And like the Hourglass Sanatorium, I don't believe I understand every single part of this yet on a single watch, but from like watching the special features and reading the essays and everything, like I feel like I've gotten more out of it. And it's such a dense movie. I think there's a lot you can get from from repeat viewings, just when you kind of understand the characters, where the journey's going, all that type of stuff. It's a really, really interesting movie, especially for cinephiles. This is a Polish production, so like if you're afraid of subtitles, stay away. But otherwise, it's a very interesting movie. This comes, I don't know the exact provenance of the restoration, but I know this is newly restored and it looks really nice. Also different from the Hourglass Sanatorium, this is in black and white. It looks really nice. It has really strong like contrast. The blacks are deep. The highlights are not overblown. There's pretty nice detail in the picture. This comes with a optional introduction from a lot of the people that you, if you get that other disc, are also on this disc talking about the director. So there's a specific film historian who gives it like probably about a 10-minute introduction that kind of gives you the lay of the land for this. She also, I believe her name is Annette Enzendorf. She also provides like another kind of video essay about the film. There's also another film historian that's kind of delves into this film. And so, yeah, there's a couple good video essays, an introduction, the booklet, good transfer. Overall, if you kind of like strange-ish international cinema, the Saragossa Manuscript is a pretty interesting watch, but it is, like I said, pretty long, but it's not oppressively long or boring or anything. I know you had a problem last week with Secret Defense, which is a long movie that like kind of moves slowly. This is just a long movie that just like happens to have a lot of stuff packed into it. It doesn't have like long stretches of just someone riding a train. So just not that I have a problem with that, but if you do, you're safe here. It's just a pretty consistently compelling movie.
That's really interesting. Again, I love these like kind of obscure titles that Vinegar and their partner labels have been putting out, because again, this is a lot of stuff that is, I mean, I like to think that I'm in touch with a lot of titles, but there's stuff that always kind of falls through the cracks, even for like, as you say, like cinephiles. So I'm going to like turn the clock back a little bit here for my next pair of titles from Warner Archive. And also I want to point out, I don't recall if the last batch had this like new logo or like the refreshed sort of but I wanted to point that out. But yeah, so these are pretty fun. I'm gonna first talk about the Strawberry Blonde with James Cagney, and Cagney also did a movie that I talked about last week, which
A Lion is in the Streets.
yes, right. Okay, thank you. It's like
No problem.
Not a lion in the sheets, unfortunately. But anyways, so yeah, this is a pretty fun movie. I mean, look at that cast. Like that really has a lot of really great actors in it. But this is a very breezy kind of rom-com. It's set in the turn of the century America. Cagney plays this hot-headed dentist who falls in love with the titular Strawberry Blonde, played by Rita Hayworth. I believe this was like a pretty early role for her since this was 41. And so Rita Hayworth's character marries a friend of his, and Cagney's character ends up marrying Amy, played by Olivia de Havilland, and hijinks kind of ensue, as well as some drama as the pair kind of question who got the better deal. So again, this is a very charming movie. It flies by at 99 minutes. I think the direction is top notch. Like the actors are incredible. I love this cast. I love Rita Hayworth, James Cagney, Olivia de Havilland. There's a lot of really like dated stuff. Some of it is a little cringe. I mean, the gender politics of the time were like not great, so you always kind of have to take that at face value. But yeah, I think that it's a pretty fun watch. Like Cagney does a lot of really great physical comedy in this, which I super appreciate. So this release looks great. Again, I say this so many times, but Warner Archive never drops the ball with how they do their visual and audio presentation. Like this is no exception. In black and white, looks great. It again, you get that nice sort of like balance where you get a really nice like depth in like the clarity, like the contrast between the black and whites, really well done. This is really nicely shot. You get a lot of the great detail in the costumes and everything. So yeah, fantastic. I was really curious about this one because I've heard of it, but had not seen it before reviewing this, and that is Clash by Night. And again, you want to talk about a stellar cast. Look at that. So I'm a big Barbara Stanwyck fan. Robert Ryan, Paul Douglas, Marilyn Monroe. I mean, she has a very small role, but I mean, it's Monroe. It's amazing. So this drama is so over the top and overwrought that it feels like this could be a Tennessee Williams production. Yeah, but and it's not a film noir, but I could see some very noirish sort of like lighting. Visually, it looks very noirish, which I thought was cool. And yeah, I think this film is a pretty by the numbers love triangle plot, yet I think the direction and the actors really elevate this material a lot. And you really do get invested in these characters. I mean, even when some of this stuff is just so overwrought, like you still feel like like you are kind of rooting for this character. Gosh, I'm blanking on his name, but this is him right there. And like just how this is such a sweet guy that's getting screwed over. And I don't know, I don't want to spoil the ending, but it kind of wraps up pretty nicely. And I showed this to my husband and he enjoyed it a lot too. So visually, again, this looks great. No issues whatsoever with like the audio and visual presentation. If you haven't seen this, I think it's really great. I also kind of wanted to point out that I believe this was ported over, but there's a really fantastic commentary by Peter Bogdanovich with audio interviews from excerpts of Fritz Lang. And, you know, we unfortunately lost Peter Bogdanovich a while ago, but like he was just somebody that was not only a prolific filmmaker in his own right, but, you know, a historian in like the strictest terms. Like he was like friends with these guys, so it's kind of incredible to have that ported over. So yeah, if you are not aware of this film or you're a fan of like these actors, pick it up. It's really great.
Awesome. Yeah. I haven't seen Clash by Night yet. I did see Strawberry Blonde and I really loved it. I thought it was a fun like kind of play on I like how they worked with Cagney's kind of his reputation as like kind of like a tough guy, because like
Yeah.
yes, he is an ex-con, but when they kind of reveal how he got to be so, you're like, oh, okay, it's an interesting take on his kind of persona. And it is a movie that kind of it made me start developing a crush on Olivia de Havilland. I was just like, oh, I like her character. I like how she's kind of a forward thinking like woman who's just kind of like, she was trying to kind of blaze a trail of like women's rights, like more so than kind of a lot of that period was. So I like that they kind of did bring up some of those elements as well. And she just seemed very nice.
Yeah, and didn't you love like, this isn't a spoiler, but like the home dentistry with the laughing gas?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just weird fun bits like that. Yeah, it's there. I mean, again, both titles like kind of slipped under my radar, but yeah, really well put together.
Yeah. Good job, Warner Archive. You're killing it. My next title. This is a beast to get through, so I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. But apologies for those who want a short episode. I don't think I'm going to get it with this one. But this is a new '88 films release of In the Line of Duty 1 through 4, which is a fantastic set of kind of martial arts, crime, all kinds of stuff films. So let me show off the packaging as quickly as possible. I'll go disc by disc. You get a case for each one with double-sided art. So the first one is Royal Warriors with Michelle Yeoh in the lead role. You also get, I don't want to butcher his name, but I know he's recently in the latest John Wick movie. I believe it's like Ryuki. Let me see if I can find it. Hiroyuki Sanada. So he's in this film as well, and I'll kind of talk about that more. But I'm a fan of his, and I was interested to see him in like kind of this earlier role because I've seen him in just random things over the years. But I know recently he was in the John Wick movie. So that's the first one. The follow-up, Yes, Madam, here also stars Michelle Yeoh. It's her coming back, being joined by Cynthia Rockwell, I believe. Rock. My apologies. So she is joined by her here, who she is an English or American actress who did a lot of films in Hong Kong and China. But the interesting thing about this is, even though this is In the Line of Duty 2, technically, it was filmed before Royal Warriors, the first one. And so the international release schedule is just all over the place, which I learned from the commentary tracks. The third film saw Michelle Yeoh abdicate in favor of Michelle Khan, I believe, Cynthia Khan. So here is In the Line of Duty 3. They gave up the different like titles. They just went for a straight In the Line of Duty 3. So here's the alternate cover art for that one. So Cynthia Kahn, she would continue on to the fourth movie as well, which is the final one in this set, which you can see here in the Line of Duty 4. It's just classic numbering. So there's the disc art here, and then the alternate art here.
Nice.
Yes. So I showed off the back artwork when I showed this off. So this is the back, but whenever you get it, you'll have this kind of little piece of paper that kind of like lists everything that is in the set, which you can see is pretty packed. A lot of this is also like language information, but it does have a really good amount of special features. This comes with a double-sided poster. I have not opened this up to see which films they actually feature. Let's see. So, whoops, do not want to rip it. Okay, so yeah, you have the cover art that I showed you. That's on the front art, and then you have Michelle Yeoh being a badass on this other side. So, when is she not though? So, love her. I love that the past year or so, especially, we've been getting so many vintage Michelle Yeoh films. I'm loving every minute of it. And you thought you were set with just one double-sided poster. No, you get another. So this is just a bounty of riches. So you get here, there, and then more royal warriors.
Nice.
These are so big, it's hard to capture on my screen. So, and then finally, you have this really nice, thick booklet. So let me show that off a little bit better here. I want people to be able to see it. So,
nice.
Plenty of content here throughout, tons of essays, all that good stuff. So now that I'm out of breath from showing off all the package, let's dig into it. So these four films, I'll just kind of talk about as a whole. There's not a dud in the bunch for me. All of these are quite a bit of fun. They all maintain kind of a pretty light tone overall, but there's serious ass kicking throughout these. I believe that the strongest films are the two with Michelle Yeoh, and the first one is kind of like a team up movie, and I like that it did kind of bring in an element of a Chinese police officer collaborating with a Japanese officer, just kind of like some of the cultural differences, and just kind of there's things woven in throughout that I kind of like. But then the second one is whenever Cynthia Rothrock comes in, and you kind of she plays kind of like an insane detective lady who's just beating up suspects and she just doesn't care. She's like, what are you gonna do? What? I need information. So she's kind of a tough as nails type person. There's also a lot of good side characters that have a lot of good physical comedy. The two Cynthia Kahn movies, I do think they're interesting. I just think I like Kahn. I just don't think she is as charismatic as Yeoh, but she does a really good job, and I think they're also pretty entertaining movies on their own. So all four are pretty great, just cop films, crime films with a little bit of silliness, but enough kicking ass that it's very entertaining. So this set is great. It has all of these come from new HD restorations. They look really good. All of them contain the original, I believe it's Cantonese audio. In 2.0, there's a couple of them that have alternate home video mixes as well. If you grew up with a different mix on VHS or something, that's included here. There's also English dubs for each of them as well. And The second film, Yes, Madam, is the one that is most loaded. They got new interviews from Cynthia Rothrock, who she does like a very brief introduction, like a 9-second hello to the like welcome to the disc. But then she also is given like a full interview. She does select scene commentaries with Asian film expert Frank Jing, who he also does full length commentaries for all 4 films. On 1 or 2, he is also joined by a additional commentator, but the first 2 I know he's completely solo. There's a couple other new and archival interviews. There's like a older, probably early 2000s interview with Michelle Yeoh for Yes, Madam, and like a producer and everything. So like, and I think there's like an archival interview with Donnie Yen, who is in one of the later movies. So it's another appearance from Donnie Yen, who I just talked about recently for the Tiger Cage collection. So all these actors are just kind of like swirling in my orbit, and I don't hate it. It's pretty great. But yeah, this is a pretty stacked release. It's beautiful. I love that each film gets their own case. It's a little bit slimmer than a normal case, which I appreciate for shelf space reasons. But yeah, 88 films, kicked ass, just like these women do. So yeah, in the line of duty 1 through 4, if you love like just like Hong Kong action movies, crime movies, a little bit of martial arts, definitely pick it up. It's such a great release.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's like an embarrassment of riches with these really amazing like kung fu and action films. I'm going to be sticking with Warner Archive for a little bit here. So I'm going to try to not get into like a soapbox, but there's a certain actor turned president in this that is the Antichrist. But anyways, okay. Storm Warning is the movie, and He Who Shall Not Be Named is in this. This is so. I think I want to mention right up top. This movie deals with some very sensitive subject matter. The issue of race and the Klan is all front and center. And I don't know if it's really necessarily my place to say whether or not it's handled well. I mean, from just my limited perspective, I think that it's, for the time, I mean, it's not like, there's something slightly cynical where it's like the filmmakers are like, pat myself on the back. I am sticking my neck out saying that the Klan is bad. That's kind of what this position of the film is. And yeah, duh. Like, but yeah. If you're still interested in watching this, the movie, I think, is for the most part well handled. Again, for the time, I think they are fairly sensitive with this subject. I will say that, well, let me get into the plot really quick. So Ginger Rogers' character comes to see her sister, and she hasn't seen her in a long time, and she just happens to sort of witness lynching.
The Klan shoots someone in the street.
Yeah, it's but yeah, so she witnesses this, and she is like a key witness to this. He Who Shall Not Be Named is the prosecutor and wants to bring the Klan to justice, and everybody in the town is afraid. They don't want to sort of go against how much power the Klan has in the town. And what's making this really difficult is her sister's husband is part of this Klan, and took place in this execution. So yeah, it's really heavy stuff. Obviously, you can tell from the description. It's again, your mileage may vary of like how you feel like the subject matter is handled. I think one of the things that is really cringy about this is you don't really get to know the gentleman that was executed. You don't really see him as a flesh and blood character. He's more of a plot device. I mean, as cold as that sounds, but again, it's a fictional character. But I mean, it's unfortunately a really real problem. So yeah, it's like I wish they would have maybe taken a little bit of time to sort of flesh out this character, maybe even just given him a scene leading up to or something. But yeah, I mean, again, I think the drama is really well handled and good. It's very engaging. The sort of like social and socio-political like machinations are really fascinating, I think. But like again, there is a cynical side, as I said, about how this feels like everyone's just high-fiving each other because they're like, this isn't a huge like stance to take. I mean, yeah, the Klan is absolute garbage. Yeah, I think it's very much of its time, but unfortunately, like you were saying with Thelma Louise, these topics are sadly still very relevant. So I feel like it is a worthwhile movie to watch, especially as a snapshot of where we kind of were with things like this at the time of the release. So yeah, it's heavy stuff, obviously, but I think it's well worth watching. Again, whether or not you think it's handled correctly, again, is up to you, up to the viewer. But yeah, interesting watch. Don't know if I would necessarily watch it again, but I think it's a good film overall. And yeah, it's stuff that's just very like tricky to talk about, and in a way that's very sensitive. So they have a short included with this, and strangely enough, a Bugs Bunny cartoon, which is a little weird for this heavy kind of material, but that's what's on there. So yeah, Storm Warning, like the other Warner Archives movies, it looks really great. This is another film that's really dynamically shot, and it's maybe not as good looking as some of the other Warner Archive movies that I've talked about, but yeah, it looks really great. And yeah, Warner Archive is again kind of killing it with their Blu-ray releases. So this is a good one to pick up. I try really hard to separate the art and the artist, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's a little hard because I mean, a lot of people really like suffered unduly because like he was at the wheel. So it's hard to completely divorce that, but yeah, despite that, I think it's still a worthwhile movie. I hate to say throw it all out because there are really great actors that were also in this movie. It's well directed. Yeah, but yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah. So proceed with caution. So I'm heading into a stretch that it's not as strong as my opening slate, but there's some good stuff in here. But my next one is not among those. This is not a very good movie. This is from MVD Entertainment, and this is Redline. So this is like one of those like kind of mid to late 2000s that saw that the Fast and the Furious movies were doing well, and they're like, we can do that. And then you watch it, you're like, you can't do that. So it's a pretty standard but like overly complicated story about there's like, it's the world of like kind of illegal racing. There's a bunch of like people, like rich people who are just like constantly gambling on different stuff. Like at the beginning of the film, you kind of get a sense of like, there's one character calling like one from like Las Vegas to California, or like Hollywood or whatever, and bets them like, hey, get your like I bet your person cannot get to Las Vegas in like this amount of time. If he does, I'll give you like $100,000. So you, of course, the person just goes off and like going 150 to 200 miles per hour the whole time to Vegas. So like that's the kind of high stakes things. But then it kind of settles into like this narrative where no one's really great in this, but like there's a certain few figures, mostly played by Angus McFadden and Tim Matheson. They're kind of like the core figures of like Hollywood douchebaggery and just like crime boss. And there's some other people drawn into this orbit, like the hotshot young driver here, this woman here who's like, she can drive really well, but she promised her mom that she wouldn't drive because her dad got killed and all this stuff. And then there's like this nondescript guy right here who is like trying to get like track down his brother and potentially get like revenge, and it's like a whole messy thing. But it's just fast cars, beautiful women, I guess. Like bad dialogue. I kind of knew better. I knew that this wasn't gonna be a great movie. I don't know why I did this to myself. Tim Matheson is usually decent enough for me, and then I have like this weird thing in my head where I'm like, okay, I like Eddie Griffin as a actor, like as a comedian, pretty well. Let me see but he never stars in anything good, so I don't know why I thought this would be okay. Sometimes he'll have like a role, like a side role, and like maybe like a weird comedy or something. But this was not it. This was like him trying to be more serious, and it just didn't work. So I got roped in by a few actors who aren't even that great, but I was just like maybe, and then I just shouldn't have done it. But dialogue's very bad. It's pretty boring. It's pretty sexist. It's bad. It's like bad production value. It's just not a good movie. I didn't really find any redeeming qualities. I was waiting for it to be over. I was glad when it was. I'll probably sell this off once I'm done with it. I didn't really like it at all. But it's a good release if you like it, if you want it, if you want something, if you like cars, you like people going fast, if you like people looking like 2x4 reading lines, go for it. The audiovisual quality is pretty solid. It has like pretty like heavy, like thunderous, like bass for the cars. The high definition transfer is pretty solid. This comes with, it actually has a couple special features as well. So you have like a 12-minute making of featurette, and then like a 4-minute featurette that's like takes place at like a Las Vegas auto show that you kind of see some of that. Other than that, not much to it. So yeah, this just felt like a bad, like kind of a higher budget made for TV movie that just like had the like TV actor quality. So it just wasn't very good.
Yeah. So is it Eve? Is it so bad it's good though, or just bad?
Just bad.
Okay.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not a good movie. I wouldn't waste my time with it. So sorry to the distributor, but it's not a very good movie.
Well, that's good to know to avoid. Yeah. I'm sticking with Warner Archives and Warner Brothers for here on out. This is a little more. This is way more fun to talk about than my last title. This is the Looney Tunes Collector's Choice Volume 1.
Nice.
And here's the back. So this is a pretty good collection. The curation of these is really nicely done, I think. Like Beanstalk Bunny, I think is my favorite, but there's a lot of really good stuff to unpack here. There's over 2 hours of shorts. That's fantastic. So I will say that like it's not as like stacked as say like the Bugs Bunny the collectors kind of thing, where even if you didn't get all of this, you know, like the disc was pretty packed. I was kind of a little disappointed that they didn't really have like commentary tracks or maybe like some alternate audio or some like kind of cool things that we've seen in the past with some of these collections. That being said, I think it looks really nice. I think they have done a really great job of kind of refreshing their vaulted cartoons. I'm going to talk about Superman. There's some grumblings that was maybe not super great, but I think it's fine. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I think this looks really nice. I'm going to pop this open. There's no. I'm actually kind of surprised. I mean, they have the list on the back, but like with the Superman, they have like the list in the thing here. But yeah, it's an overall really nice collection, and I think like it's priced accordingly, where like it doesn't have a lot of the extras, but you're not going to pay an arm and a leg for it either. So it's sort of a trade-off. Again, volume one makes me happy that there's going to be some multiple like collections. I mean, it's maybe not as good as like the platinum or like the like other sort of collections they had, like the Tex Avery series that they were doing. So yeah, it's really good. Again, it has its limitations. I really wish we could have got some cool extras, but again, it's you know, the price is right, so I think it's well worth checking out.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this release because this like it's an important distinction to say this is from the Warner Archive. This is not from Warner Home Video, which are very different entities, even though they're both Warner. Because like, I mean, I hate to say this, but Warner Archive actually cares. But so Warner Archive, I think whenever this release was announced, I know like George Feltenstein and like audio or animation film historian Jerry Beck, they're both kind of saying that these releases are for people like us who want their animation like not tampered with. They want full, uncut, good compression, like just like well curated stuff. So like a lot of the like the Bugs Bunny release that you showed off, and like certain other like past Looney Tunes releases have almost been entirely Warner Home Video. The Tex Avery, which were usually better, there was a snafu on the second one, but 1 and 3 were pretty excellent. So this has the Warner Archive team working on these shorts, which makes me very excited because I know they actually like, even though like a lot of people can't see like the differences in quality and like certain animation, like, oh, this is on Blu-ray, so it looks fine. Like there's a level of care put in by the Warner Archive, which I'm excited to experience myself. I can't, like I said, I haven't dove into it yet, but I think that it's probably going to look a lot better than if Warner Home Video had handled it. So I'm excited to check it out for myself. And I love the Looney Tunes, and I hope that these volumes just continue on and on until we get as many of them as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's well represented. Again, I love the like. Again, this really is some choice shorts. So I had a really good time. Keep pumping these out. I love it. I'm hoping there's like volume 1 to 100. So
absolutely. I will keep my train moving to better than my last film. I'll say that. This is from Epic Pictures and MBD. This is The Lake, which is a monster movie. It might be hard to see there. There's a monster rising out. This is a Taiwanese horror film, kind of. Monster movie, I guess would be better to call it, because there is a monster at the center, and he does cause mayhem, or she caused the monster, I'll just say. I will not strictly define this monster. The monster, it causes mayhem, but it's also kind of has like a lighthearted tone at times that kind of took me aback. And overall, it's a pretty decent movie. When it starts off, and like you first see the monster, it's like nighttime, it's raining, it kind of like emerges out of the lake, and it's very impressive visually. I was like, oh, these special effects are actually pretty solid. And then it goes on and it kind of gets less impressive, and you can kind of see the seams of like the special effects a little bit more. There's, like I said, this is a Taiwanese film, so like I don't think they have like the big special effects houses that can like get to the level of quality that maybe we're used to, but it's not a disgrace or anything. It's just like you can kind of see like, oh, that kind of looks more like digital than like seamless that you can get sometimes. And this is basically a monster trying to like who has been, I won't spoil all the plot, but like a monster has been wronged by society and it is trying to make things right by its a little bit of vengeance. But there's like some political commentary within this and environmental stuff and all that kind of everything that you would kind of expect from like a big monster movie. Like Godzilla had this, Gamera had this. Like it's just environmentalism and creating monsters and all that kind of stuff. This overall, it's an entertaining movie. It just it's a little bit long and the tone's a little bit uneven for what it delivers. It's a decent monster movie. If you really like monster movies, check it out. But there are better versions of this, and I don't know, just like whenever the credits come on, it kind of has like a almost like Bollywood-esque like score where it's like soaring like joyous like kind of like almost like nationalistic tunes, and I'm just like, what? That's weird. But overall, decent movie. This comes from Epic Pictures, who I talked about recently because I was not a fan of like their certain choices with their Blu-ray disc, and like even though I have complained in the interim, I'm sure this was already in production. Not that I will change anything, but once again, this is a foreign language movie with only English SDH subtitles, which means you have all the subtitles along with stuff like banging off in the distance or ringing the alarm, like all the descriptive effects along with the English text. So I find that very distracting. I wish they'd have just a standard English track. They do not. They also have lossy audio, so Dolby Digital audio in 5.1 and 2.0 instead of DTS or some other lossless codec. I wish they would, but they don't. One thing you can get around the the subtitle issue is there is an English dub. I do not support English dubs, but if that is so distracting to you, like seeing the descriptive effects, you can watch the English dub and turn the subtitles off. There's no really great answer, but that is an answer if you don't like it. But I wouldn't recommend that either. But there are a few special features. There's some behind the scenes, like a collection of behind the scenes clips that last about like 30 seconds each. There's about 7 or 8 of them. There's some deleted scenes. There's an extended ending, and then like a almost like an Access Hollywood type stuff, like promo that's like the Taiwanese equivalent of that lasts about 5 minutes long. So there's some special features. Still have problems with the audio visual, or mostly the audio part of it, but it's worth checking out. Just keep your expectations that this isn't going to be like a terrifying monster movie. It's not quite that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like The Host, but not good, or not nearly as good.
Yeah, that makes yeah.
Yeah, all right. I mean, I like monster movies, so I'll probably check this out at some point. So my last 2 titles, I'm starting with the appetizer before the main course here. So of course, you know, we got the Max Fleischer Superman shorts, which I was so insanely excited for. So here is the back, and we do have some new features, some featurettes, and that's great. So here's the inside. Let me pop this out. We got the big man himself there, a list of the shorts. They really nicely break it down to the 2 eras of these, which, you know, that's great. I also want to just have people be aware that the Famous Studios era of these cartoons were very of their time. Yeah. So let's just pop this out. If you can see the first title of the famous studios, yeah, you can see kind of what I'm talking about. So it's I just wanted to like bring that up if that's something that is something that maybe that's a bridge too far for some audiences understand. I'm of the mind that I believe that this stuff shouldn't be thrown away even though it's cringy or very outdated and regressive. I just believe that there should be context behind it. What to do with outdated media is a very long, complicated thing, which I won't get into, but I'm just, beware. So, having said that, I think these are all really good. So I'm not going to get into like a lot of the production, the history, stuff like that. The featurettes do a really brilliant job at filling in that context. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, the first episode, Superman is beating up lasers and giant machinery, and you have like the classic almost mustache twirling villain, and Lois Lane is a pilot and a badass, and it's so I think it's good looking. I know there's some complaints that the HDR is maybe slightly off, or it's maybe not as like good looking as it could be. I think it's fine. I thought, when I first saw it, I haven't seen, so in fairness, I haven't seen these shorts in a long time. I've seen probably very like not great VHS quality. So to my eye, I was like, wow, these look really nice. And I mean, you have this beautiful hand-drawn animation. They have like those watercolor backgrounds that I think are just gorgeous. That's something that you can replicate today using digital, but like just knowing that this is all hand-drawn and took like forever, you kind of appreciate that a little bit more. I think it looks fine. Again, maybe your mileage may vary on this, but like I thought it was great. Again, I think the price is right for this set. You do I mean, I really appreciate the fact that we do have these really nice featurettes. And yeah, I think it's an overall really like well handled set. I just think that it's maybe not the best it's ever looked, but I think it's an upgrade from the previous releases. So yeah, take that for what you will, but I appreciate the fact that this is out. This is a complete set. It's really fun. Again, this is a really nice time for animation with Warner Brothers. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
I do want to just take a second to say I believe you may have had just a slight slip of the tongue because you said HDR, which is with the 4K, because we talk about 4K so much. I think people's issue with this is the DNR, the digital noise reduction. So just like robbing the film or the animation a little bit of its like organic qualities, like just removing a lot of the grain and like maybe some of the fine detail that like in the cleanup process. So I just wanted to I know you're probably like thinking 4K. So I just wanted to I didn't want people to be like, is this in 4K? No, it's just a 4K restoration. Sorry about that. I was like on a Blu-ray disc.
I'm like staring at a 4K box set. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I am excited to check out that set. Hopefully that it's not as bad as certain reports say. I know you say you enjoy it, so I look forward to checking it out myself. My final title is from Scorpion releasing in NBD Entertainment. This is Opposing Force. Yes, so that's a scintillating
okay.
cover, yeah. And that makes it seem a little bit more like exploitative than it is. But I will say, like, I will issue a content warning that there's like this deals with the issues of sexual assault. But what this is, it's a military movie where it's almost kind of like a prototypical GI Jane, but a little bit more fucked up. This is like a woman who is like wanting to be a part of want to be part of the military. She is like signed up for this assignment where there's like this group of soldiers are supposed to go into intense training, that like tactical training on this island, and she is chosen to be one of these warriors or soldiers who goes on this kind of training mission. But whenever they're shipped off to this island, what they find there is there's kind of a leader who is kind of off the reservation a little bit. He is kind of in control of his base, and he is not playing by the established rules. In his mind, he is shaping soldiers like in like a training exercise. It's kind of like a simulation of a POW camp. So he takes these soldiers that have just come onto the island and just basically puts them in a POW camp and treats them as if they're prisoners of war in order to train them for the real thing. So there are people getting like beaten, they are being like starved, they are being like humiliated, all kinds of stuff. And with a woman on the island, unexpectedly, it goes to some pretty dark places. And like until like these soldiers are trying to get to a place where they're going to like they know that they're in like this is part of a military exercise, but like how far will they let it go until they have to like kind of like rebel against what they like the unjust nature of stuff. So yeah, this makes it seem like a sexy time. It's a really more of a grueling, gritty time. She never looks like this, like skimpy or anything. This is just marketing. She's wearing like normal military uniforms, but she is made to strip down naked and shower just like all the other recruits. She is like sprayed with water. There's all kinds of that stuff. And even reading the description and kind of knowing what it was about, I wasn't sure if I wanted to review this movie like before I requested it, but like I read some reviews and I ultimately did decide to take a chance on it. I'm glad I did because it is an interesting movie. It is just a very tough watch, and I'm glad it is not as exploitative as it could have been. It's not an exploitation movie. There are just things that are very tough to watch and not filmed super sensitively, but it could have been much worse considering the content. So like I said, this doesn't treat women very well, but there is a strong woman at the center of the movie. So weigh that how you will. Overall, it is a interesting military movie about like how power corrupts and how like institutions that you once trust can like disappoint you and like go corrupt and all that stuff. So overall, if you can handle it, it's a pretty interesting movie. It's just tough watch. Like I said, I don't want to keep just repeating myself, but just I want to be clear. This like content warning needs to be taken seriously. Yeah. But this comes from a 2019 HD master. It looks pretty nice. I didn't see too much in the way of nicks and scratches, just occasional stuff here and there. But there's been some level of care to keep this master looking good. There is an audio commentary as well, and then like an alternate ending. So there's a few special features to go along with this. The audio commentary comes from the director, Eric Carson. So if you want to get kind of his interpretation of what he was going for with this movie, you can listen to that. But overall, this seems to be a good release for this movie if you are interested.
Yeah. Usually we like to have some lighthearted banter about some of the tradings to the sexy titles of the week, but yeah, that sounds like it's a heavier sort of kind of watch. So that might be one I might skip, but we are gonna end. I wanted to end this on a strong title, and how much stronger can you be than the Man of Steel? So I'm talking about the Superman five film collection. Now these are just the Christopher Reeve movies. This does not include the Justin or I said Justin Long. That's not right.
Brandon Rowe.
Yes. Movies. So yeah, so here's the back. I mean,
I like that you inadvertently reference Zach and Miri make a porno.
Right. Well, that's a good one too. You all should check that one out. Okay, so I know this is a little bit of a, I guess, controversial release because some people have been having some issues with some of the visual and audio presentations. I'll get into that shortly, but I wanted to just review these all really quickly and then get into that. So this was really interesting because this was my first time watching any of these. So, I plowed through these fairly quickly, but I had a mostly good time. So part one, so this is, obviously the gold standard, considered the best. It's a really interesting feel of a movie. It's modern for the 70s, yet there's a feeling that they're trying to make this sort of feel like a pastiche of maybe like the George Reeves era Superman. I think there's a pacing issue in this. I think that there's some things that are very distracting. Marlon Brando. I won't get into the history of this movie, but let's just say like Marlon Brando like phoned this in. So he got paid like a ridiculous amount of money to be in like 10 minutes of this movie. So it's always weird when they call it Krypton instead of Krypton. They say that a bunch, not just Marlon Brando, but yeah. So this is a fun movie, though. It's very charming. It's Donner was always really great at capturing a timeless tone and a sense of wonder, but also he's just really great at crafting like what would become like iconic films, like this movie, The Goonies, Lethal Weapon. I could go on and on. The Omen. Like I said, I do think the pacing is an issue. There are some scenes that I feel could have been trimmed or maybe just cut out it completely. But you cannot deny that Christopher Reeves and Margot Kidder had this amazing chemistry, and I think that that's really like the glue that holds these together. Gene Hackman, holy crap, he is amazing. He is over the top as Lex Luthor, but I feel like it works. And from the technical standpoint, John Williams and that amazing iconic score. And this was shot by two-time Oscar-winning DP Jeffrey Unsworth. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Unfortunately, he passed away right after this. This movie, in fact, is dedicated to his memory. But he, again, was literally won Oscars for his amazing work. So Superman 2. So I'm not going to get into this, but there are two different cuts of this film. Donner filmed these back to back, but they fired him midway into production, and the things were taken over by Richard Lester. This film definitely suffers from conflicting tones, but and again, I feel like the pacing with over 2 hours, it's a little bit overly long, but it is charming. The cast is great. Reeves is fantastic. Lex Luthor, all really good stuff. The Donner cut is, I think, like in a lot of ways much better. And I love how we do have a dedicated disc just to the Donner cut. So part 3 is kind of where we're getting into the decline of these films, but it's really bad, but I think it's fun. And this does kind of have its own sort of like fan base. Richard Lester goes full slapstick in this film. There's like this ridiculous Rube Goldberg sort of intro that's very like silly. And I feel like that kind of sets the tone for this film. It's very, like I said, it's tonally very different from the first two, and again, your mileage may vary on that. And again, it's paced pretty awkwardly. Richard Pryor is in this. That's interesting. For fans, so I want to mention this because it might get mentioned in the comments, so I want to bring it up. If fans of Office Space will understand the the like plot, or like it's kind of just a subplot in this, with like the bank account and doing fractions of, like that's kind of taken from this. Yeah, it's fine. It's very silly, it's very weird. I mean, Richard Pryor seems very random in this movie, but I don't know, I think it's fun. And I have to mention Drunk Superman. Mwah. That's evil, like Superman that's just, kind of a piece of shit, but yeah, amazing. No notes. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, was this is kind of a fascinating what if. So Canon bought the rights, or got the rights to Superman. They were going to do a Spider-Man. They were going to do a whole like cinematic universe. This tanked hard, and it kind of like squashed all those plans. So had this not failed, I feel like superhero movies would have been very different. But yeah, this is really bad. Superman 3 kind of ditched Gene Hackman. They only gave Margot Kidder like a few minutes of screen time. They do bring Gene Hackman back. Lois Lane definitely gets more screen time, but the movie is a mess. The plot is aimless. It's badly paced. The bad effects. It's not good bad like Superman 3. There are some charming things about it. Like the main villain is really cheesy and fun and very of its time. So yeah, again, your mileage may vary, but it's by far the shortest of the films, so that's maybe a good thing. And I blew by these pretty quickly, but like it's a fun collection. Okay, so from a technical standpoint, some people have pointed out, and I'll include the forum posts, that there are like part 1 uses a poor 4K master. It removes the 70 millimeter track, and uses a downgraded 35 millimeter track. Part 2, poor color grading, lackluster Atmos track, so on and so on. I will include that post. So I am like new to these films, so it was hard for me to like properly gauge like what was like non-intentional. I thought they looked fine, but I will include that post so you all can check that out and read a little bit more in depth about that. But yeah, so as far as I know, there's no replacement plan in the works, but we will keep you updated when and if that happens. Yeah, I think it's a nice collection. There is also a really nice steelbook edition of this, that if you're a big Superman fan and you want to like spend that money, you can get that as well. So yeah, again, technical issues aside, I had a fun time with these movies. I think the presentation is nice. Again, if you really want to ball out, there's a steelbook edition that I'll link in the description if you all want to check that out. But yeah, that I guess wraps it up. As always, I appreciate the fact that you all seem to be coming back for more. We've been getting a lot more views in a shorter amount of time. So thank you. As always, liking, commenting, all that stuff really helps. And yeah, just thank you for hanging out with us, and stay tuned for more great stuff next week.